Welcome back to episode number 15 of Sports Talk Live. If you notice, I'm all by myself today. Coach Jacob was not able to make it. He's a busy man and got caught up today. It happens, but we'll power through. We'll figure it out. So this is our 15th episode of Sports Talk Live. It's pretty crazy. We've gone 15 now. I mean, throughout it, we've had a guest and Derek out. Jacob had to do a solo one, and now I'm doing my solo one. I guess it's payback for me making him do one, right? It's only fair. It's been a busy week in sports, a lot going on. I mean, baseball and basketball maybe in the off season, but basketball has an extremely short off season because their season's starting in December. I mean, we have the draft coming up next week, free agency, trades. There's all kinds of rumors. We'll get into those. Baseball, I mean, we had the qualifying offers just come out. Marlins just did something really cool. And, I mean, we got football like anyways. So let's hop on into basketball. As you know, I'm a Warriors fan. Coach Jacob, who wasn't able to be here with us today, is also a Warriors fan. And the Warriors hold the number 2 pick in the draft. That's pretty crazy stuff. I mean, not very often do you see a team as talented as the Warriors hold that number 2 overall pick. So there's a lot of ways they can go with it. I mean, they can try trading for another veteran player, just really like make sure that core is strong and see what they can do. Or they can try drafting someone young. I mean, look out for their future and now. There's a lot of ways. There's a lot of rumors of what they might do. I mean, it's argued. I mean, this isn't for sure, but James Wiseman is the name I see a lot of people attached to the Warriors at the number 2 pick. He's the center. It kind of makes a lot of sense for them. The other 2 guys, Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball. I almost said the wrong name. I almost said Lonzo Ball. That would have been bad. But LaMelo Ball kind of he's a point guard. So you have Curry at point guard. You have Klay Thompson at shooting guard. I mean, there's not a clear path to get some significant playing time there, or at least as a starter. But then you have Anthony Edwards, and he also, he's another shooter. You can never have enough shooters. But the Warriors really could use that big man center. So a lot of people are attaching James Wiseman to him. And the reason I say this is interesting, because I saw a report last week that apparently the Timberwolves, who hold the number 1 overall pick, are shopping the pick as kind of like you want James Wiseman trade up in front of the Warriors. Because the Timberwolves looked at their team. I mean, they have Karl Anthony Towns at center, so it's not really a need for them. They have D'Angelo Russell at point guard, so he's not really a need. And then the article I was reading said that Anthony Edwards doesn't really fit the team because he has a tendency to take poor shots sometimes. And that's not really what the Timberwolves are looking for. I mean, they just need some more quality role players, and by trading back, they'd be able to get more of them. So it makes sense why the Timberwolves would be looking to trade back. But it'll be interesting what happens if the Warriors decide to stay. If the Timberwolves pick gets traded, there's a lot of moving parts that could be potentially going on there. And then we have the season starting in December. So, I mean, it's coming. They got to get going. These teams have got to figure out who they're bringing in free agency. I'm honestly not sure how the free agency period is going to work. It's definitely going to be different than past seasons. That's for sure. And I mean, in other news, we also have Russell Westbrook, who apparently wants to be traded from the Rockets. That is interesting. I mean, we saw him be really good in the Thunder, but kind of struggle because there wasn't anyone else around him at times. I mean, they had Paul George there for a little bit, I should say once Kevin Durant left, because obviously he had Kevin Durant around him and then he had Paul George later. But a lot of times it seemed like it was just kind of a one-man show for Russell Westbrook. So that'll be interesting where he goes, where he ends up. I'm not really sure what team could use Russell Westbrook, man. He's a talented player. Obviously, I don't think anybody will say he's not a talented player. But I kind of think Russell Westbrook is almost better on a bad team. Like, he's not really your standard. I don't know. I think Russell Westbrook likes to have the ball in his hand. And, I mean, James Harden likes to have the ball in his hand. So that in itself wasn't the great pairing. So we'll see where he ends up. And that'll be something interesting to monitor. And then we have the MLB. I love baseball. I have my Giants hat on almost every episode. And speaking of the Giants, They offered Kevin Gosman, their pitcher from last year, the qualifying offer, and he decided to accept the offer. So Kevin Gosman will be back for one more season at least. There's talks that they're negotiating on a longer contract. I would be thrilled with that. I know a couple other people. I mean, there's a lot of other people, the Raiders. I'm talking about the wrong sport now. You know what I'm noticing? This is a lot harder to do by yourself. Like, I like to talk, and even for me, I'm like freaking out right now. So we have the Giants. I was talking about Kevin Gosman. So there's rumors that the Giants are talking to him about extending that contract on even longer. The only other player to accept their qualifying offer was Marcus Stroman of the New York Mets. They have their new owner, Cohen, and he's come in wanting to build a team. So it makes sense. Stroman wanted to stay around, see what happens. That totally makes sense. It's been a lot of reports about how this MLB offseason is going to be an interesting one. Some teams apparently don't want to spend as much money. Some teams like the Mets, and I've even heard a rumor about the Giants potentially wanting to spend money, are kind of looking at this offseason as a year to like go big and try making a move. So that'll definitely be something interesting to monitor. And in huge news, the Miami Marlins hired their new general manager today, and her name is Kim Ng. This is huge because this marks the first time in an American professional sport. I'm not sure other professional sports outside of America, but in the big U.S. professional sports, so we're talking MLB, NFL, NHL, MLS, and I feel like I'm forgetting one. What am I forgetting? Football, baseball. Did I say the NBA? I might have forgot the NBA. Yeah, baseball, football, hockey, soccer. I'm forgetting something. Wait, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, hockey. There. I got them all that time. Took me a couple tries, but I figured it out. But for those 5 professional American sports, Kim Ng is the first women general manager. And that's huge because for a long time, there's been this like gender barrier that it's been a male dominated position. And it's really cool to see this influx of female talent. I mean, we saw the Giants hire the Alyssa Nakin as a coach last year, and she did a great job for the Giants. I mean, there's a bunch of knowledge out there, and you might as well take advantage of it. I mean, if you're looking as a team, like Kim Ng, I honestly, I'll admit, I didn't know much about who she was, but I don't know much about any of the baseball operatives. I know more about coaches and players, not really management. But she has 30 years in the league. She's worked for 3 teams that have won a World Series, worked for the league office for like 8 years. She has all the experience in the world. She clearly knows what she's talking about when it comes to baseball. So I'm excited to see what they can build in the Marlins. The Marlins have had a rough go of it the last couple of years. I mean, you look at an outfield, they had Giancarlo Stanton, Christian Yelich, and Marcelo Ozuna in the outfield with JT Realmuto. Like, they were stacked with talent, and now they have none of those players, and they have very little to show for those trades. So hopefully Kim Ng can help turn around the Miami Marlins with Derek Jeter, who also works for them. I think Derek Jeter is a part owner. Could be wrong on that, but I know Derek Jeter is involved somehow. So I'm hopeful to see the Marlins continue to turn it around. I should emphasize continue because they did play extremely well last year. And I think that's going to wrap up my baseball and NBA talk for today. If you're watching and you have something, go ahead and comment it. Let us know what you think, who you think maybe the Warriors will draft, who you think maybe the Giants should go after in free agency, and what you think about Kim Ng being named the Marlins manager. There's a lot of cool things going on in sports, and I'm excited for it, man. Last night, so let's get into football. Last night, we saw the Tennessee Titans play against the Indianapolis Colts. It was actually a really fun game to watch, and it's kind of interesting because none of the really big name offensive players you saw do much. I mean, we had Derrick Henry get 100 yards rushing, but it's Derrick Henry. I don't think anyone's really impressed by 100 yards rushing anymore. And that's kind of low for him. But then we saw A.J. Brown have a very quiet game. Corey Davis have a quiet game. And then on the Colts side of the ball, Jonathan Taylor didn't do much. Michael Pittman, their star rookie receiver, I think he had a solid game, but he definitely didn't do as much as we thought. It was definitely for the Colts, it was a great defensive game. Their special teams showed up. I mean, the Colts ended up winning I picked the Titans to win. I got that one wrong. So it was definitely a huge game for the Colts. I mean, the Colts are really starting to demand respect in the league. They're kind of a team where you look at their offense and they have Philip Rivers, who had a really bad year last year. He hasn't necessarily been great this year, but he's the quarterback of a 6-3 team. So maybe it's time we give Philip Rivers a little bit more respect, even though it definitely is the defense carrying the Indianapolis Colts. And last night, the special teams too, the blocked punt for a touchdown. That was great to see. I'm excited to watch the Colts, even though the Titans are probably my second favorite team. I love watching the Titans play. A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith, Derrick Henry. Even the backup running back, McNichols, he's looked really good. So I definitely like watching that Titans team play, and I'm excited. So last week for the picks, me and Jacob make every week, I went 10-3 and Jacob went 8-5. 10-3, that's tied for my best week. And actually, that now brings me and Jacob back to tied on the season. That's pretty crazy. We've been doing this for now, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. Through 7 weeks of picks, me and Jacob are tied. That's pretty wild to think about. What are the odds of that happening? For this week, since Jacob wasn't here, he's already entered all his picks. So I'll go through, I'll say my pick, and I'll say if he agreed with me. I can't really speak to why he said what he said, but I'll say why I think who's going to win, right? Let me catch my breath real quick, man. I'm out of shape. The first game is the Houston Texans versus the Cleveland Browns. My instinct is to say the Cleveland Browns. They're getting Nick Chubb back, which is huge. And the Texans are down David Johnson. So they have Duke Johnson, even though I think Duke Johnson's really good. So I don't know if that'll impact them as much. Cleveland is at home, but Houston's been really good since Bill O'Brien's left. I'm going to go Houston. Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller. I like a lot of those offensive players. So I'm going to go with Houston. Jacob picked Cleveland. Part of the reason I picked Houston to be different, right? It's more fun when we're different. Next is Washington versus Detroit. This one, however, I am going to have to agree with Jacob. He put the Detroit Lions. I will agree with the Detroit Lions over the Washington football team. Even with no practice last week, Stafford played pretty well. Lions have, Galladay, I think, is still out. So we have Marvin Jones as their number one receiver. Also Marvin Hall. And the big thing for Washington football team, Kyle Allen with the dislocated ankle. So they are going to be using Alex Smith now going forward. And I like Alex Smith, but he's a year and a half removed from NFL football. I'm not fully confident in Alex Smith to lead the Washington football team over the Detroit Lions, so I will go with Detroit. The next game is the Tampa Bay Bucks versus the Carolina Panthers. Jacob picked the Panthers, of course. He's a big Panthers fan. That makes complete sense. And honestly, I don't know if I can knock it. The Carolina almost beat Kansas City last week. There was a shootout between the two teams. Very fun game to watch. And Tampa Bay, who everyone thought would be in a shootout, played absolutely horrible against the New Orleans Saints. That game was extremely boring Sunday night. That's probably the worst Sunday night football game we've had this year. So very forgettable. Do you know what? I wanted to say Tampa Bay, but I'm going to go Carolina. I'm not the biggest Tom Brady fan, and I'm not the biggest Antonio Brown fan, being a Raiders fan. So I'm going to believe in Curtis Samuel, who's been lighting it up with the Panthers. They don't have McCaffrey, but Mike Davis has been really good. So I'm going to go Carolina. Why not? The next game is the Philadelphia Eagles against the New York Giants. I think the Giants are not a good football team. And yeah, it's as simple as that. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. Jacob also picked the Eagles. Next up is Jacksonville versus Green Bay. Green Bay is just an elite football team with Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones back, Devontae Adams. With their core three healthy, those, especially with Allen Lazard. I think I said that right. With Allen Lazard coming back, I think that game's not going to be very close. I mean, Jacksonville, even though Jake Luton, their rookie quarterback, did look good last week, I'm not ready to fully believe in him. Next up is Buffalo versus Arizona. Buffalo looked really good last week in a shootout against Seattle. Arizona was in a shootout against the Miami Dolphins, and they actually lost. I'm going to go with Buffalo. I mean, Arizona was able to score a lot on a good defense in Miami, but Buffalo. I mean, when Josh Allen is on from Buffalo, they are hard to stop, and he looked like he was on last week. He was struggling for a little bit there against some worse defenses, but I don't think Arizona's defense is good enough to slow him down. And then our next matchup, we have the battle of the rookie quarterbacks, Justin Herbert versus Tua Tagovailoa. I like Tua, man. I'm excited. I have to start him in fantasy in one league. It's a 2-quarterback league, so I'm a little desperate for that second quarterback. This one's hard. I mean, Jacob went with Miami. Miami's defense is better, and it might come down to that for me. I mean, when I look at the two, do I believe Tua can move the ball? Like, we've seen two different Tuas. His first game, he did not look good. His second game, he looked he looked really good last week. He didn't really have to do much. And I think this is a tough game. I don't know who to go. Jacob went with Miami. I wanted to go with Tua, but I kind of want to be different than Jacob here. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers. Justin Herbert, he's had a rough go this year. I mean, he's been playing really well, but the defense has just not held up late in games, and their offense hasn't been able to score. So they can figure out this late game part of it out. I think the Chargers can maybe beat the Dolphins. I'm not fully confident about that one, but I'm going with it. Next up is the Las Vegas Raiders against the Denver Broncos. I almost said the Oakland Raiders. This game is in Vegas. I'm going to go with the Raiders and Derek Carr to beat the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos are anything particularly special. Even though Drew Lock did play a good game last week, he actually played a really good game, came back and won, I believe. Let me check. I'm not sure. No, wait. Yeah, he didn't quite complete the comeback. Atlanta was able to hold them off. But he did make a huge push late in the game and tried to win the game. I just don't think Denver has what it takes to beat the Raiders. Call me biased, call me whatever you want. I'm a big Raiders fan, and they are going to win this week. Jacob also picked the Raiders, so we are in agreement there. A lot of these games seem pretty one-sided this week, except that Chargers-Miami one and Buffalo-Arizona. Those games were hard. Next up is Seattle Seahawks against the Los Angeles Rams. Seattle lost last week against Buffalo, and I don't think they want to lose 2 weeks in a row. I think Russell Wilson's way too good to lose 2 weeks in a row. Even though the Rams are coming off a bye, I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks to win the game. Jacob also took the Seattle Seahawks. Next game is the Cincinnati Bengals against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jacob took the Pittsburgh Steelers. The undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, even though they almost lost to the Dallas Cowboys last week, I still think the Pittsburgh Steelers are the best team in the league, and I will take them to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Next up is the San Francisco Niners against the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are finally healthy. I mean, they finally have Michael Thomas back after he missed a significant part of the year. Even though he didn't do much, I think he's still getting going, just getting into game shape. I'm going to take the healthy New Orleans Saints over the injury-plagued San Francisco Niners. It is what it is. The Niners are just not healthy right now. The next game is the Baltimore Ravens against the New England Patriots. I'm not the biggest fan of the New England Patriots right now, especially now that they lost Damian Harris, who had been looking really good. I'm not quite sure their defense is good enough to hold up and supplement the subpar offense they've had playing. They beat the New York Jets last week, but barely. And anytime you barely beat the New York Jets, that's not necessarily the best situation to be in. So, yeah, I have Lamar Jackson in a couple fantasy leagues, so I'm holding out hope he can show up and play really good. Next up and final game of the week, this is our Monday Night Football game. We have the Minnesota Vikings against the Chicago Bears. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings run game has been unstoppable the last 2 weeks. Dalvin Cook is just a man on a mission. He has not been stopped. I mean, I think he has like 6 touchdowns and almost I think he has 400 total yards and 6 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, which is mind-boggling stats. Like, that's just insane. Chicago, I mean, if they're going to beat Chicago, it's going to have to be on the ground. Chicago is one of the best passing defenses in the league. And even though you have Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson, I wouldn't necessarily trust them against Chicago. I'll probably sit Jefferson in a fantasy league this week. And, I'm going to take the Chicago Bears. They changed their offensive coordinator this week. It's no longer going to be the head coach who is, I'm blanking on his name, Matt Nagy. He's no longer going to be their play caller. It's going to be the offensive coordinator calling the plays, which might help. I mean, they definitely needed a new approach. Something wasn't working. They have the talent there. Minnesota's defense is not good. So hopefully Chicago could take advantage and their defense can show up. That's what I'm hoping on. And Jacob went with the Minnesota Vikings, so we went differently there. Me and Jacob only went different, 1, 2, 3 of the games. This wasn't a very controversial week, so we'll probably not move too much in the standings. Someone will take a lead this week, though, so that is good to know. And yeah, that is all for today. I hope you guys had a great time listening. Make sure to drop a subscribe down below, like the video. It helps us out. I really appreciate it. This is our 15th episode of Sports Talk Live, and we will be back next week, hopefully with Jacob at 4 o'clock on Friday.